Being the closest to the door, Dexter got up and answered it. Meanwhile, Izeric's phone notification went off after receiving a message from Sister Mary. Opening the door, Dexter was warmly greeted by an older man who partially introduced himself, wearing ripped and poorly stitched clothes, covered in many stains, short greying hair with a contrast of chocolate skin. "Hello there, I'm your teacher, Mr. White. May I come in so I may properly introduce myself to all of you at once?" Dexter didn't hesitate to step back to let him in. From the corner of his eye he could see somebody right behind him with piercing cloudy blue eyes staring with fury at him that left Dexter stuttering slightly as he backed up a little more to make space. Of course. Come in." As Dexter made his way towards his seat, Mr. White revealed a large bag with boxes of pizza stacked on each other along with a few drinks. Making his way towards the center of the living room, speaking calmly to Galena, who held the remote. "May you turn off the TV for now, please?" Do I smell pizza?" Spoken through excitement, Rudy immediately sat on the edge of his seat the moment the scent had his nose. Galena was hesitant to turn off the TV when she noticed the piercing eyes of the mostly concealed girl behind him approaching before turning it off. The brother and sister were next to notice the intensity of the girl's aggressive presence. Immediately after, Izurek was the last to notice. Just got done looking up from his phone from checking his message after receiving a text that said, "Oh, and I forgot to say." If they haven't arrived already, then they should be soon enough. Share what you can and take good care of her. Hopefully you remember each other. If not, then do it as a favor for me. Can't tell you much since not my story to tell, but be patient with her. Okay, I got to go. Love you. Talk soon. Izerek was quite confused with the message, with no time to reply, since now Mr. White was requesting their attention. His eyes quickly shifted to the girl who just met his stare. She stood in place, falling behind Mr. White's stride, revealing herself to everyone fully. Straight blonde hair that slightly tinted white drooped just below her shoulder with fair skin. The familiar face became crystal clear to Izerek when noticing the tired, slightly sickly cloudy blue eyes. Her piercing gaze widened like the open sky. All of the aggression faded as she sprinted at full speed towards Izerek and pounced into the air several feet away, shouting with pure innocent joy. "Eyes!" Izerek was frozen in place. A poor attempt to process this new situation he found himself in with the impending collision. Ciela launches herself out of his hair to get out of the way as the girl comes crashing against him. From the angle of the chair, it starts leaning solely against the back right leg for 2 seconds, before the girl's weight tilts the balance once more and bringing the chair back down. Her face buried into his chest while she clinged on for dear life. "Hello, Alice. Nice to see you again." After the shock subsided, Izerek rested his arms around and patted her back. Mr. White cleared his throat to get everybody's attention once more, all the while taking out the pizza, cups and paper plates. "Let's get back on track. Hello, my name is Mr. White. I will be your teacher for the foreseeable future, and that over there is Alice. Some complications arose, so she will be staying here with you all as well. Nice to meet all of you. I already have your names. Oh, and come help yourself to some food. My office will be down the hall to the left. But anyways, we're going to be starting off strong. I will be summarizing the state of the world just in case you don't know it, and let the information soak in overnight, and we can go over everything again with questions later." All but Izerek and Alice, one by one, they grabbed themselves a plate and something to drink from the options. Izerek did ask Rudy to grab him some, who happily obliged. Ciela flew back into his hair, sometimes leaving to go back to their new room to eat and drink her own food. Mr. White grabbed an extra chair from the dining room and brought it back, sitting on the opposite end of the coffee table in front of the TV, grabbing him some of the food as well, before turning his head side to side to look at the kids before resuming speaking. "I'll try to make it quick, so during this time there will be no interruptions. No questions. Just eat, sit back and listen. If we get done eating and I haven't finished, then we can all go get some dessert before it's too late for lunch tomorrow." Rudy and Zarya both cheered just loud enough for the other to hear. A few smiles and glances between everyone, all silently hoping for the promise of dessert. All of them ate while waiting for the story to start. Iziric was given 2 plates to share with Alice, who made no movement to unbury her head from his chest. He would slowly end up eating her food as well, quickly noticing her slight shaking and silent cries that soaked his chest. Unsure what to do, he only offered a silent comfort by gently hugging her. All right, so we're going to start pretty broad before narrowing it down. We are on the planet Gaia, the 5th planet from the lovely blue star Sirius. Gaia is very big. Unfortunately, 60% is water, 40% is land, and 30% of that is forests. There are or were 5 continents, 2 of which are unknown if they still survive. The one up north, east, south, upper west, and lower west. The continents of upper and lower are both unknown. They are the continents that are floating and underwater. The north, east, and south are all connected by land and sea, with large natural bridges, tunnels, and caves all around. Since the beginning of Gaia, there has always held the magical power we call mana, little magical particles. Mana is inside everything. Mana's natural color white, but this near instantaneously changes to blue. White we call neutral mana. It quickly wants to change into other types. The blue we call the world's mana. It's what you will see the majority of the time. There's also a dark orange with black blobs we call chaos mana, being opposite of blue. With mana, you can bend and manipulate practically anything and everything around you depending on your strength and affinity. Although most creatures can survive without it, it is as precious as the very blood in your body, especially since the mana is produced from it. If enough mana density is in a single place, it can even create mana crystals, which can be used for several different things, or even create elemental beings from it. Which brings me to the different elements and what they mean. Different elements have their own colors associated with it. In the beginning, it was a lot harder to find different crystals of different elements to test your own affinity on. So some people went their whole life not knowing what element belonged to them, if it wasn't the basics. The basic elements are red for fire, light blue for water, mix of dark green and brown for earth, and a clear white for air. If you look closely at them, for example, fire, it won't just be simply red but resemble colors of a tiny flame. From a quick look, it just looks red. After the basics, you have advanced. These are without colors but more about feeling to the physical world. They're called sonic wave, agua wave, and seismic wave. After advance, it's the expert and their colors. Light, which can actually be many colors. Mainly it's just bright. There's dark, which is pure black. Spirit, which is white with a bunch of colors blended with it. Then shadow, mostly black with some grey. Each of these also have their own realms. After the expert is the master. Life, a mixture of the 4 basics. Death, dark with light inside. You have space, that doesn't have a color but more of a visible distortion. Then time, like a soft white wrapped in thin gold. And gravity, which is similar to space being transparent purple, along with the visible distortion. Lastly, you got the special category. They can be bended quite easily, just at a very dangerous price. With order being blue like the world mana but shimmering silver. Then chaos, still dark orange with black blobs flowing within it. These elements are overall what you can bend, but not break things. Then you have abilities which are more about control. Abilities can't be elements, but use them as a basis. Like having the ability lava from a fire element. If you can control the lava, then in most cases you can manipulate earth and fire too. Abilities are more engraved into your body. They have a chance to be passed down to your children or even through familiars. To have an ability, you must be lucky to be born with a random one, inherit from your parents, or a lucky bond with a familiar. If you're not, then you have to work hard to create your own, which just means you have to be very knowledgeable about all of the elements involved. Also, inheriting an ability doesn't make you good at the elements related to it. Elements bend things to your will and have little influence on their offspring. Abilities have a greater chance to be inherited and become ingrained into your body with knowledge how to use it. Then lastly, you have DNA seeds. They're as small as a seed or big as a first. These things are incredibly rare and incredibly unpredictable, often better sold to a fool than to consume it yourself. They can be anything and be anywhere. Wake up fine, come home from work and have one on your pillow. DNA seeds change your entire being. And if you're still able to have children, it will forcefully be passed down. A fire seed may make it so any harm that comes to you turns your body into flames and have the attack pass right through. This can also be negated through other means, but that same fire seed could just make your hair always on fire, breathe fire, fire eyes, or turn you into a fire elemental entirely, and so on. From mundane to the unbelievable. From the useless and frustrating to the life-changing. A true gamble. I believe that's the basis of the world before. Now let's skip to the year 3079 BA, before the arrival. Even though everybody has mana, the majority of people had it in a small capacity, in which no one knew how to increase. It's enough to power most magic tools, vehicles, and such. So instead of society being built on magic alone, it blended with technology. By this time, it was the most united the world has ever been. There was no more fear of war. The deadliest of the weapons was completely scrapped. There were still many other problems, but there was progress. Progress that would be shattered. An event so massive, humanity collectively decided to reset the calendar for the new world. Going by the initials AA for after the arrival. The arrival is where the silent gods more than spoke, where there is no longer room for denial of their existence. Along with them were beast, angels, devils, demons, spirits, towers, and portals appearing everywhere. A pure hell on Gigi. It was also the appearance of the game system and a HUD, which is mainly a display, allowing you to do and see things normally not possible, such as seeing how hungry you are and many other things through menus or on the side of your vision. But these things need to be unlocked by God's interference, killing a demon, or going inside a portal or tower for the first time. This wasn't always the case, but over time things changed. As we are now in the year 1677, approximately only 2 billion that was once 20 billion remains. The East is completely taken over by demons and the Horde, renamed Delaros. The North formed 2 ringed barriers as defense. This sanctuary is called New Hope. Then it's where we are now. Down south we call Fort Dolramon. The North and South each hold approximately 1 billion citizens each, with similar ring barriers that stand around 500 feet tall. Each barrier has 2 smaller rings around from the inside and outside. That's the primary defense location, which is around 25 feet. The outer ring is mainly where the preserved wildlife, farmers and villagers live. Buildings tend to be wider and go underground. The inner ring is where they primarily build upwards. After the arrival, we've lost all reliable contact with the upper and lower regions to the west. Any information is unreliable or deemed classified. All the animals were affected as well, turning into beasts and getting stronger, especially the ones in the ocean, making very few people willing to make the journey. Getting strong enough to gain sentience and being able to communicate. You primarily see these creatures up north. Towers are places that appear out of the ground, filled with treasures. They were scattered everywhere, but over time all but 2 were destroyed by one reason or another. 1 each resides in the north and south and is built around them. The towers as well got stronger over time, and it's a Tyranny, the main key to get stronger nowadays. You will learn more about that when it's actually time to go in, if you choose to. You can go up the tower, which is best for a group of people and get strong together. Or you can go down the tower, which is best for individuals. In New Hope, 80% of people go up towers and dislike people going down. Vice versa for Fort Dolramon, hating people who go up. Spirits slowly faded over time from sight. They're still around all around us as I speak. Now only powerful spirits can be seen by those who weren't born with the ability to interact with spirits or learn to. No one has figured out how to train it yet. Portals filled with monsters that randomly appear anywhere and everywhere. With the magic protecting the sanctuaries of the north and south, portals are a problem, but not much of a concern. The closer you are to the tower, or to outside of the wall, the more they will appear. They're overly weak within the walls, but can still cause problems if not taken care of. Portals can break, and the monsters can come out. Some supernatural creatures were common, but they're pretty much now rumors again. Others leave no doubt about it, like vampires are widely known and active a lot. The more dangerous supernatural creatures that can't easily sneak around often just stay in the east with other demons and beasts. The Horde is just a horde. Creatures of hell that attack every night without fail. Weak against sunlight. As students in the program, this means you will be trained and sent out to serve for a year. Good chance you'll be defending off from the Horde and patrolling for portals inside the wall before you're strong enough to take the ones outside. The gods slowly stop talking directly with people and showing themselves. It's said they will talk to you once you're a chosen. It's also when you actually learn the names of the gods and not just what they're the god of. If you believe in a god and serve them, they can offer quests for rewards through the system. The system is used for many things which you will learn later. For more current news to end it off, in Fort Dolramon, the government is doubling their efforts on pirates in their area. The government is also negotiating with a few other stronger individuals for territory to limit violence. And rumours of the fanatic group Daughters of Gaia resurfacing is more frequent as their activity grows more and more in recent years. Known to hide within the churches. Up north in New Hope, chaos between the three factions is still raging on after a little over 15 years ago. The government and the Dragon Dynasty teamed up to unleash a complete extermination mission against the Blood Dynasty. Unlike down south, up north held more guilds and family-like groups. The Blood and Dragon Dynasty work differently, but remain some of the oldest connected families in history thus far. Both of them possess a DNA seed, and I'm sure you can make a guess of what. The Dragon Dynasty. It's pretty much just one family with a large number of followers that was never officially counted, since they only consider family members a part of them. The followers increased to thousands, only accepting the strongest into the main family. All of their followers have a middle initial and change the last name to Dragon. As an example, a main family member would be named Jimmy Dragon, and a follower, Jacob J. Dragon. They all only practice with fire-related things and body-hardening magic. The Blood Dynasty has 5 families under the main. Their naming conventions worked a little differently. They each pick an initial for their respected families, adding blood in the beginning of their last name except for the main family. Their middle name is Blood, with their last name being Haven. For an example, Jackie Blood Haven for the main family. As for the first branch family, who goes by the initial Don and last name River, it would be Jasmine Don Blood River. Sometimes naming the middle name with the initial in it, such as Adonna Blood River. They only had approximately 251 in total. They work together to increase all of their family's strength. Each family specializes in a different field: healing, assassination, attack force, and such. Although they're all strong, only 2 were feared far more than others. The main family and the third branch family, S. Bloodheart. The Bloodhearts are known to be long-lived and they don't bear children often. Their family had fewest members and no one quite knew their ability, since they were mainly used as personal guards for the main branch, captains if seen on a battlefield, or scouts if seen alone. If you see them alone, it was a do not engage order placed on them. Let them watch, just run and report. No one risked keeping them alive when they fought. As you can probably tell, the extermination mission failed. They say approximately 24% survived. Their main targets were the main and third branch. It said 10 years ago they managed to teleport a powerful weapon that will help turn the tides of battle. The head of the Blood family still lives, and the 3 children of the Bloodhearts survived. Even today, the 3 siblings are out for blood, ironically. Most of the adults in the other branch families have all died as well. I tell you this because after you graduate and are done with your service, it is also one of the things you will need to think about where you're going to go. If you wish to stay in service and be transferred somewhere else, or where to settle down. Down south, if you work for the government, you get good benefits, but a lot of chaos and better opportunities to get stronger alone. Up north, probably not the best choice if you wish to stay in government or join anything related to the Dragon Dynasty, since you will always be on edge. It's best to keep updated on the news. You're still kids, so there's no need to think about it too much, but it's still something to think about a little bit. Alright, that was a bit longer than I thought. I did a few extra things. Ah, and the Manor Heart. Seems I probably forgot a few things. Let me check the time. As Mr. White was finishing up, and he took a moment to look at the time, glancing around at the kids, realizing they finished all of the pizza and drinks. After rising from his seat, bringing the chair back to the kitchen. Ah, we'll be dealing with the Manor Heart shortly, so no matter. So who's ready for dessert? Any dessert ideas? After returning the chair, he clapped his hands once in excitement. Mr. White saw each other's faces expressing something different. Zachariah yawns with tired indifferences, only perking up at the mention of dessert. Zarya was completely focused throughout it all, her head resting on her knee, and she hugged her leg. Donuts? Vanilla cake? Cookies? Sweets? Her voice slowly rising, Zarya's slight squirming building excitement. Dexter, with his calm demeanor, happy the story was over but still enjoyed it and wanted to learn more. Just wanting more free food, adding his suggestions. Ice cream could be good, maybe donuts and ice cream. Rudy began stretching in his seat as if trying to wake himself up more and not pass out. Although interesting, was it really his ideal way to spend time? That history is crazy. Definitely got a few questions. Speaking of ice cream, maybe a nice blueberry shake would be good. Oh, I have so many questions. It's fascinating history, and you didn't even mention the droids. Galena's eyes held focus and interest. Her smile halved when she remembered she would have to wait for questions. She was still excited to learn more, but she was also waiting for her promised dessert. But a strawberry shake that sounds nice. Ha ha! Don't worry, young miss. It's going to be a long few years, with a lot of free time to catch you up on history. Although there's a lot to do, most of this time is spent socializing and preparing you for high school. For those who are going into service, you'll be needing to know a little bit of everything, Mr. White commented. Izurik looked down at Alice, slowly brushing his fingers through her hair. Although she was awake, it was obvious she was on the borderline of slumber. Ciela was fully asleep, resting in his hair. He found the history quite interesting. A few things caught his attention, but caught his attention more than anything was the Blood Dynasty. Thinking of his full name that he was always meant to be kept hidden, Izurik Sol Bloodheart. Realizing if what Mr. White said it was true, then he has 3 older siblings out there somewhere up north, bringing his attention back to the teacher to speak. I do like the idea of shakes. We can make funnel cakes with the donuts. Mr. White began gesturing for everyone to stand up, speaking as he continued walking to the door. Meanwhile, one by one, each of them began to rise from their seats. Wonderful choices. Come now, children. Don't think I was going to bring the treats too. I know I said it's mostly going to be socializing, but don't think you won't be training. Everybody needs more stamina. Izurik was the last to stand, speaking softly for Alice to stand with him, gently grabbing a handful of her hair to lift her head up. After a few seconds of groaning, Alice finally stood up, her eyes slightly swollen from the crying, although others would barely tell the difference from her normal tired, sickly look. Her eyes were innocent before Izurik. When she turned towards the door, it was replaced with a more cold, aggressive look, only moving once he did. She stood right behind Izurik, holding on to the back of his belt as if afraid he would leave. After joining everybody at the door, Mr. White began leading everyone down the halls and stairs to the far end of the building, to the cafeteria. Being the end of dinner time, there were more people leaving than going in as they finished up their food. Like a big buffet and a dinner mixed together, Mr. White approaches the counter and orders the different ice cream shakes upon request. While waiting, they all go and pick out their fresh donuts they wanted from the display rack. The whole time Izurik paid no mind to Alice as she walked with her head slightly down and maintaining her hold, trying to be as close as possible without touching. She held the donuts while he carried the shakes. As everyone began to sit down at the table, Izurik instead went to an empty one out of earshot from everyone else. When he and Alice sat down, Izurik takes a bite out of his banana strawberry shake before turning his attention to her and speaking calmly but bluntly. You've gotten a lot more clingy and aggressive since last I saw you. What happened? Alice lazily took a few bites of her ice cream before pausing for a moment, as if thinking what she would do next. Then suddenly turned her back away from everyone. Pausing for another moment before glancing up at Isaac, opening her mouth a little wider than normal to expose 4 slightly longer, sharper canines, with the top canines being 1.3 centimeters and 1 centimeters on the bottom, leaving Isaac grunting in acknowledgement, while he analyzes them. That's definitely new. How did that happen? Vampire experiment. Alice's body slowly begins to shudder at the mention of it as she begins to lose her composure. She places one hand on his Zurich thigh and squeezed tight. He didn't notice the change in demeanor soon enough, as he was already asking the next question on his mind. So that's why your hair is a little white and you look a little bit more pale than I remember? She nodded her head very slowly. Noticing her state, Isaac postponed the rest of his questions and tries to lighten up the mood and bring comfort in the first way he thought of, gently tapping her thigh to try to get her attention. Hey, look. Once he got her to look up at him, Isaac used his index finger to pull his cheek to the side as he opened his mouth as well. Since last she saw, his canines have grown longer as well as the 2 outer teeth that was behind them, slowly descending from 1.6 to 1.2 centimeters on top and 1.4 to 1.2 centimeters on the bottom row. You got some like me now. What Isaac failed to predict was Alice seeing sharp teeth again after displaying her obvious trauma. Lucky for him, at the sight of his teeth, Alice did find comfort, stopping her shuddering and loosening up her grip. Although mines are still bigger and I have more, Isaac playfully mocked, slowly licking his 12 sharp teeth before pushing his shoulder up against hers with a little force to rock her. Alice chuckled before gently punching his arm, grinning in protest. Mines are still growing, plus I'm fine with them being small, not like I want a large chainsaw mouth like yours. They both laughed for a moment before Isaac started turning her back around to her dessert, patting her back, and she begins to speak more calmly and sincerely while turning his attention back to his own desert. Sorry, I didn't come to play with you more. Alice used one head to grip his belt once again as she scooted up against him while sitting side by side. She couldn't remember the last time she smiled, laughed, or anything kind sense away from the church, Isaac and Sister Mary. Her smile almost faded. She spoke hushly with a hint of joy lingering. It's okay. I found you. Now we can be friends again. Found me? Isaac spoke towards himself barely audibly with a questioning tone, almost stopping his train of thought before wrapping his arm around her head to lean her against him with a sideways hug, resting his head on Alice's, beginning to speak more clearly again. Never stop being your friend, dummy. This time I'll look after you even better. I'll get strong enough to protect you no matter where you are. Alice let go of his belt to wrap the arm around Isaac, digging her nails in his skin. Just no separating, she mumbled. Isaac stroked her head, agreeing while repeating her words tenderly. Okay, just no separating. They both continued to eat their dessert in the silence they're both used to. Glancing up, he noticed the teacher, and the rest of the group was done sometime before they were. Afterwards, they throw away their cups and join the group before they all return to the dorm room. Mr. White everybody one last time as they reached the door, mainly looking at Isaac and Alice, who didn't hear it before. Don't not stay up late. Class will start at 8 in the morning. Be fully ready before then. No pajama pants, said sternly. Murmurs of agreements from the kids. The teacher turned around and headed back down the hall and turned to the left out of sight. One by one, they all enter the dorm room. Zachariah didn't hesitate to enter his room. Zaria, Dexter, Rudy, and Galena sat on the couch, turning the TV back on. Isaac made his way to the balcony. With his room not having a good source of the nightlight, he decided to go outside each night on the balcony before laying down. Sitting on the floor, thinking about all that happened that day. Alice sat down right behind him, wrapping her arms around him tight. All of their thoughts slowly faded. For Isaac, being under moonlight. For Alice, being reunited with her only true friend once more. One by one, everybody returns to their rooms to sleep. Isaac shutting down the house after being the last one with Alice. After switching to their pajamas, she clung onto his arm. Ciela cooed and snuggled one side of his head. After a text to Sister Mary goodnight, Isurek slowly joined the others in slumber.